Now in football there was once a time where two strikers were the heartbeat of every great team. A pair of bagsmen up top that could figure out how to win a game by themselves. Sometimes a big man and a little man, a poacher and a provider. Like Fire and Ice or Zorro and Sanji. The likes of Andy Cole and Dwight York, Alan Shearer and Sutton, Filippo Inzaghi and Del Piero, and of course Henry and Bergkamp. And these weren't just striker partnerships, they were forged brotherhoods. These guys knew how to get the best out of each other every single game. But somewhere along the line on this journey of football evolution, something changed. The second striker began to vanish, fading away into the distance. And today, in this era of inverted wingers where we like to just cut in and shoot, this art of a two-striker partnership is completely lost. So let's talk about some of the best two-man striker partnerships in football and what happened to this way of playing. And to really understand how far we've come, we have to go back in time, as we always do on this channel. Rewinding time to when two strikers were infiltrating the game, which was from the 90s to the early 2000s. Back then, nearly every top club used two strikers on a football pitch, because during this time the 4-4-2 was a default setting. You could not change this tactic, and within that structure laid these two bagsmen up top, with the perfect case study being Man United's treble winning duo Andy Cole and Dwight York. Now of course I wasn't really around to watch these two play football, but I know for a fact that they were big time. Two strikers that would dominate the late 90s and the early 2000s, even being featuring in a lot of early Nike football adverts. Dwight York played with this flair and finesse that we see in modern strikers, with fine touches and moments of technical brilliance sprinkled throughout his game. And pairing this up with Andy Cole's pace and ruthlessness in front of goal, it was a match made in heaven. But what made it even better was their chemistry. At times they were moving like they were genetically linked, one touch passes setting up the other in attacking scenarios. Flicks, layoffs, volleys, they didn't just score goals, they invented finishes, scoring 53 combined goals in the 98/99 season, whilst also winning a Champions League title and being a part of a historic Manchester United team. We also had Alan Shearer and Chris Sutton, two strikers that not a lot of people watching this video would even have heard of. Well, besides Alan Shearer. This guy is the top goal scorer in the Premier League, in history, ever, all time. Bald head. These two were a striker duo for Blackburn Rovers back in 1994 to 96, with Alan Shearer being one of the most ruthless finishers in Premier League and football history, and Chris Sutton being more of the physical target man that would hold up the ball and give it to Alan. And it was together that they powered Blackburn to their first title since 1914, and they would go on to obliterate defences with their direct, aggressive way of playing. Del Piero and Inzaghi were another striker duo that not a lot of people really talk about. Playing together in the late 90s, they achieved some big things, reaching multiple Champions League finals, with Del Piero being the artist, being able to drop in deep, pick up the ball and really dictate the tempo of the game, and Filippo Inzaghi being an absolute assassin, getting a goal by any means possible. Everyone already knows him for his ability to manipulate the offside trap, but he was also just, an outstanding poacher of the ball. He could get you a goal no matter how ugly it looked. And of course the pinnacle of striker duos in my opinion that played during this similar era was Henry and Dennis Bergkamp. These two forged a duo that was more of a different take on the classic two-man striker setup. Because Bergkamp wasn't made out to be a 10, he evolved into one of the best. His creativity just fed Thierry Henry time and time again, seamlessly blending his pass-first methodology into Henry's pacey game. Henry would be given the freedom to drift wide, and Bergkamp could drop in deep and create things just like that. His movement and telepathic connection with Thierry Henry would lead Arsenal to success in the early 2000s, scoring over 180 goals combined in 5 seasons. And round the world during this time there were many different variations of this 4-4-2 striker setup, from teams playing in a 3-5-2 to a 4-3-1-2. They all utilized two strikers. And again, it was these types of setups that gave us even more memorable pairings. The likes of Raul and Morientes of Real Madrid, Crespo and Chiesa of Parma, Kluivert and Rivaldo of Barcelona. And why did it work so well? Because these two strikers could constantly apply pressure to centre backs at the time. And if one was feeling lazy, the other one would go, squeezing the defence. These are modern ideologies that were forged into the game very early on, with over time this being evolved into teams using three guys up top, which could apply even more pressure. And as the 2000s rolled on, we slowly saw a tactical revolution being spearheaded in football. And at the heart of this change was midfield control. And in came the rise of three-man midfields. Managers like Jose Mourinho and Rafa Benitez infiltrated the game with three-man midfields, beginning to emphasize this more compact way of playing, in contrast to the expansive forward line that would pretty much consist of two strikers and two guys on either side that were pretty much wingers. Adding three men playing centrally in midfield would allow teams to control the ball for longer, dominating the other sides that were still utilizing two strikers up top. And this shift slowly led to the disappearance of the second striker because, they had no more space to really roam. We had the introductions of lone strikers, two wingers and three-man midfields. And with this came even more hardships for some of our favourite strikers at the time that used to be utilised in a two-man striker formation. One example for me would be Thierry Henry once moving on from Arsenal. When Henry joined Barcelona back in 2007, he had to abandon this dual dynamic striker duo that he had pretty much pioneered in his entire time playing with Arsenal. This dynamic that he had playing off of someone had completely disappeared. And under Pep Guardiola, who was another manager who spearheaded three-man midfields and three guys up top, he, kind of lost the spark to his game, being pushed out onto the left hand side rather than playing centrally. Whilst over time, despite seeing success, Messi would adopt the false nine role and eventually Thierry Henry would be forced to leave. And despite various success here and there of two strikers coming up in football, the likes of Wolfsburg and Dzeko and Grafite, there wasn't many. This way of playing with two strikers up top became a tactical antique, something that fans could just look back on, appreciate, but never really grasp and bring in to modern football, because the elite clubs would stop using this method of playing entirely. And who can really blame them? Tactics were always going to evolve, and the introduction of inverted wingers is probably the best introduction in football that we have ever seen when it comes to tactics. Some of the most flashy and entertaining players play in this role. So this video isn't me saying that two strikers in football are superior, this is just me appreciating this time when two strikers in football were a thing that wasn't just seen sparsely in football, but that was a staple, where we could witness some of the most legendary strikers paired up with each other. The likes of Rooney and Tevez at Manchester United, pressing and causing chaos for defences. Trezeguet and Henry forged an amazing duo for France in the Euros back in 2000, complementing each other's skill sets perfectly. Zamorano and Salas of Chile back in the 90s were also causing chaos internationally. And I can't forget a duo like Adriano and Vieri, aka Bobo. Pure brutality, power and finishing. These two guys were strikers that could probably lead a side by themselves, but at times for Inter they were paired up. But wait, despite all of these lost duos in football, there have still been times where strikers have been paired up and actually had some success in the modern game. One example would be when Julian Nagelsmann was the manager of RB Leipzig and he had the likes of Poulsen and Timo Werner up top. They had some success. That's when Werner was making his name. Gasparini's reign at Atalanta also saw him use two strikers here and there too. From Zapata and Papu Gomez to Zapata and Muriel. Simeone's Atletico Madrid also used two strikers for a while, with the likes of Griezmann and Morata being utilised up top. And probably the one that you guys are screaming to talk about, Inter Milan. They are probably the only modern side that are actually decent that utilise two strikers, whether it was Lautaro Martinez and Lukaku a few seasons back, or right now Lautaro Martinez and Marcus Thuram. Tactically, football is one of the most cynical things, changing every single season. However, in football right now it looks like we are going through some sort of cycle where we're seeing traits of the old coming back into the new. So I wouldn't really put this tactic firmly in the ground. This is something that could probably be utilized even in this coming season. The two striker tactic didn't just become extinct overnight. It took years and years for this to slowly fade out of the game, and it will take a few seasons for it to be thriving again. So just give it some time and tell me what's your favorite striker duo of all time and your favorite right now, if you can even name one. This has been Jib Rules, back with another video. Make sure you leave a like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed, and of course, as always, stay safe, stay blessed, and peace.